Nupur. I work with Spirit India as a program manager. And again, good morning to everyone. And on behalf of Spirit India and AIDMI, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to this crucial multi-stakeholder consultation on heat wave preparedness in India. So, as we are convened here today, we are confronted with a pressing issue that really demands our collective attention and action. The escalating temperatures with the absence of monsoon rainfall in several regions of the country. They have heightened the risk of severe heat waves, and it poses significant challenges to our communities, ecosystems, and infrastructure. So, before we delve deeper into the discussions and we invite our esteemed panelists, let's just take a moment to reflect on the backdrop against which we are convening here today. So, as we know, there is significant data that is available, and even recent data from European Union's Corpus Climate Change Service has underscored that January 2024 was the warmest month on record globally, and it followed the declaration that 2023 was the hottest year since the records began. And furthermore, as we know, the IMD, Indian Meteorological Department seasonal weather forecast also states that the hot weather season from March to May of 2024, it predicts above normal maximum temperature for most parts of the country. And with this background, which is supported by evidence and data, it really becomes imperative that we heed to these warnings and we take proactive measures to safeguard our communities from the adverse impacts of the heat waves. Recently, in light of all of these developments, NDMA also organized a workshop on heat wave preparedness in February, which also covered various aspects ranging from early warning systems to mitigation strategies. And we know that while there are 20 plus states in India that have heat wave action plans, but there is a need to develop more localized heat action plans and strategies to address heat wave. So today, our objective for this consultation is to build upon the existing strategies and further refine our approach as a collective towards heat wave preparedness and response. So let me just very briefly outline the objectives of this consultation. So we are going to be discussing about the key challenges faced by various stakeholders and also a reflection on the existing policies and frameworks. We'll also deliberate on how we can foster collaboration and knowledge sharing among all stakeholders, and if we can cull out a comprehensive strategy for 2024. So, throughout the course of today's consultation, we'll be privileged to hear from a diverse range of experts and stakeholders who will share their valuable insights and experiences. And yeah, so before we proceed, I would like to take a moment to express our gratitude from the organizers for India and AIDMI to all of our esteemed speakers and participants for their unwavering commitment to this critical cause. Thank you again for joining us today. Let us embark on this journey towards building resilient communities. And yeah, so our first session today will be focused on the learning challenges and opportunities. And I take great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Rajiv Kumar, who's Program Specialist in Risk and Resilience from UNICEF Bihar, who's graciously agreed to moderate today's discussion, the first session. So just a brief background on Mr. Rajiv. He comes with a multidisciplinary training in public health, social work, and population studies, and he has over 15 years of progressive work experience across different organizations like UNICEF, World Bank, USA, DFID, and he's worked across many states in India. And with that background, I would like to hand it to Mr. Rajiv for taking the discussion forward and steering this critical consultation. Over to you, Mr. Rajiv.
Thank you so much, Nupur, for the brief introduction of the deliberation that is supposed to happen today, and also introducing me. So hello, everyone. I welcome you to the discussion that we are going to have today. I will not lose any time, and straight away, I'll just talk about briefly, though you must have received the flyer, and that you must have seen that the discussion will focus on three things. Some of the learnings that is there available across the government or across civil society partners around the previous heat waves in India, Then in the specific sense, we'll also be talking some of the recent challenges pertaining to the last year in dealing with the heat wave situation across various states. And then we'll also try to deliberate on some of the indications for the research for the upcoming summer. So before I start talking about the state of Bihar, I also welcome other panelists to the panel. Dr. Bhanu Pratap Mal is the convener for IAG Uttar Pradesh. Sir, welcome. Ms. Silpa Sirvadkar is from the Research Infinity Foundation, Maharashtra. Welcome, Shilpa. Then I can also see in the video Mr. Subir Kumar, whom I recently met. He is the convener for Interagency Group Jharkhand. And then Mr. Bimal Jatt, who is a co-founder for the Synergy Sansthan, Madhya Pradesh. So I guess we are representing Hindi speaking and also some of the most affected states from the heat wave. So I welcome you all. I am not sure, Nupur, that am I supposed to read the bio or?
No, that's okay. We'll be sharing the bios in chat for
Yeah,
everyone's reference, so we can proceed.
that's correct. So maybe I mean, it will not look good if I also start as a moderator talking about Bihar. So maybe in the order, and maybe I'll come last and then do a bit of moderation. So can I invite Dr. Bhanu from Uttar Pradesh to briefly talk about these three, and then we'll move. Dr. Bhanu, please. I'm sorry for coming in because there was a slight change. My colleague Onkar was supposed to be moderating it, but now he is not. Unfortunately, he's stuck somewhere and no internet connectivity. Okay, so it looks like that Dr. Vanu, is Dr. Vanu there in the panel right now?
He is there, sir. He has raised his hands.
Okay.
But let's see, it might be some technical.
Okay, if by the time we, kind of do that, can I invite Miss Silpa if she is?
Hello,
Hello, sir.
am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. Right, Rajiv, Dr. Bhanu here.
Yes.
In fact, UP is a state where last year we have found that 250 people plus died because of heat wave. And this was all in a very small period. Almost, I think, 68 people died because of heat wave in Balia only, and from 15th to 19th of June. So that scared everybody. Prior to that, people were not very um, um, attentive for this. But 15 to 19 June created a havoc, and then government machinery and everybody started talking what happened, and people were suspended from different departments. Balia is a place where, I mean, both Ganga and Ghagra river meets. And next point is Bihar. So that is a junction where most of the vulnerable people are there. That is most low-lying area in UP, where flood is always a problem. And temperature was just 43 degree centigrade, whereas in Banda, 46 degrees centigrade temperature was there, and nothing much happened. So people were worried. What was the basic reason why people died at 43 in Banda, Balia, and people at 46 didn't die in Banda? That was basic question. Second thing, uh, different departments which are supposed to work on this, they didn't learn about it. They didn't do anything only they started firefighting after the entire event took place. But my suggestion is that in UP, uh, there are different departments which are coordinated effort is being done. That's true. But at the same time, only health department takes action. Other departments do not so, I mean, they are not so actively engaged in this process. And the other important thing is that why it is happening more. I mean, we are not taking account that in urban area the heat islands are being seen, and this heat island effect is creating more problem, and the cases are going to increase in coming days because of unplanned things and the factor which is already I mean, there are many people who are sick, who are children, who are elderly, they get more affected. So what I feel, disaster management department or UPSDMA has been talking to people, departments, making their heat wave plan, individual, I mean, different departments, as well as the heat wave plan of facility. That is also there. Different kind of trainings are also being given to people. So I think in total, now people are active and they are taking care of, I mean, what all can be done. But at the same time, we have
Can we hear him or we lost him?
No, I think we've
Okay.
lost him. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so. Okay, so thank you so much. As we again establish the connection with Dr. Bhanu, now let me also introduce a little bit more what and summarize what he has been talking. He has been talking that there has been, I mean, the brief that not much recognition about the heat wave planning, so to say, or even response before this Balia last year, which has large number of deaths again reported. What he has also tried elucidating on that doctors or the health department were the only one, if at best, so either respond to it. There was no such acknowledgement or preparedness from other departments. So he was trying to say that that's required to be done. So before we move to next speaker, Mr. Subir Kumar, who is the IAG for Jharkhand, let me talk 3 points, not specific to Bihar, but just to inform the people who have joined and also the panel that, and Nupur has also told in her address introducing the topic. So it looks like that every year is becoming now the hotter than the previous year. So I think we always run the risk of telling any year the hottest year so far, because what we are staring that every next year is going to be the hotter year. So that's one of the defining issue around heat waves and the situation that we are. Increasing urbanization, as Dr. Bhanu has also been trying to tell that, so urban heatline effects are not only been seen, so in some time there's a possibility that this urban heatland is no longer going to be just urban heatland in restricted to urban area, because the kind of construction that is happening, you hardly find any other structure other than the concrete, even in the rural areas, or very small, tiny helmets. So that's going to be another area. In terms of informalization of economy, I guess that heat wave are also going to be very, very challenging, and many people will be out working. So these are the initial thought which I was supposed to talk beforehand, but due to change in schedule, we have to quickly rearrange it. And with those three, salient point which is coming in dealing with heat waves in our country and specific to our states, I will invite Subir ji, if you are ready and your system is working well, maybe we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaskar, sabon And I think I'm having one presentation of Jharkhand so that we can run through and we can discuss on the here.
If you can put it on full screen mode, maybe presentation mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
This is of Jharkhand. What I have tried to just collect some of the information from various sources also about the Jharkhand. We all know that Jharkhand is prone to several disasters, that is drought, heat wave, cyclone, flood, thundering, earthquake, and forest fire and thundering event. So there are a lot of challenges there in Jharkhand, and especially if we talk about climate thing in the an increasing trend in the frequency of occurrence of the drought and heat waves across the state has been noticed over the year. So we see it, the trend is going higher and higher in the last even 23 years when it became Jharkhand, separated from Bihar. The heat has already been increasing and documented. The statistics department has documented a lot of things regarding increase in heat and many reasons for that. According to VAI, the rising temperature have caused high concentration of the greenhouse gases. So we see so much plant and trees has been cut in development process, road and infrastructure being developed in the urban area. So lot of issues are coming up and the things are being changed. Temperature is going very high. So these some of the information even in the national level and in the global level people are talking about the reason for that, and so far we are not able to address those issues. And next slide, please. In the period since 1901 to 19, the temperature has been increased so much. Summer may maximum 44 degrees Celsius tak jata, whereas winter range in between 33 to variation of the temperature is so high. Jharkhand government has already declared recently that 158 blocks of 17 districts is a drought affected area. About 1.5 million farmers were impacted in 24. This report says about that. In next, the state overall recorded percentage 38% less rainfall than average during last monsoon. ये पानी बरसात कम होने के चलते the heat wave is heat and drought is taking place. Since 23 years ago, the state has been declared drought hit 10 times. So ये एक बहुत ही दिखता है कि कैसे अर्बनाइजेशन हो रहा है, कैसे डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है, साथ में वी आर सीइंग कितना ड्रॉट का बढ़ते जा रहा है. And in 23, government had set a target of 1.61 million showing during the Kharif crop, and the only 2,82,000 hectares were planted. So ये भी एक इंडिकेटर है जो दिख रहा है कि ड्रॉट का कितना बड़ा कारण हो रहा है. Next, the challenges faced in the last heat wave, as per the report of the Indian Institute of Public Health, the data in India are unreliable and analyzing total daily weekly deaths causes death in any city or district. This hampers the country ability to accurate estimate the total number of deaths due to heat waves. इतना ज्यादा हीट वेव के चलते डेथ हुई है, और उसका उसका कोई भी रीजन और उसके लिए कोई बहुत ज्यादा कॉज का पता नहीं किया गया, एंड द हेल्थ एंड अदर रिलेटेड डिपार्टमेंट, the action which they are taking is not sufficient enough and reporting that way. Europe, the temperature in May 22, the European Space Agency recorded land surface temperature nearing 55 degrees Celsius over many parts of the northwest India and crossing the 60 in some pockets. So the temperature जो पहले था, बहुत सारे factor we know, but the thing is how we are reacting to those and how we are recommending to the system and government to address those issues for ye. Next. There are many people of Jharkhand. Among them, one is Dr. Nitish Priyadarshi. His study and his environmentalist also. So he says that this kind of heat wave trend was not previously there. There used to be summer heat previously too. However, as soon as the temperature reached to 38 to 40 degree, बरसात हो जाती थी, और अब 40 डिग्री पे भी टेम्परेचर आता है तो इट्स नॉट रेनिंग. सो ये एक बहुत बड़ा पॉइंट है, जो कि इतने टेम्परेचर में बारिश होना एक स्वाभाविक था झारखंड के लिए, रांची और सराउंडिंग्स एरिया के लिए, और जबकि अब 40 डिग्रीज भी हो जाती है तो नहीं बरसात होती है. लॉट ऑफ रीजंस फॉर दिस स्कॉचिंग हीट वेव. द पॉपुलेशन हैज ऑलमोस्ट डबल. जैसा ऑलरेडी राजीव जी भी कह रहे थे, जनसंख्या भी एक बहुत बड़ा कारण है, और जिसके चलते कंक्रीट जंगल बढ़ रहा है और जो ग्रीनरी है वो कम होती जा रही है. द हीट डायरेक्टली फॉलिंग दीज कंक्रीट बिल्डिंग गेट्स एब्जॉर्ब्ड एंड रेडिएट्स बैक टू द एटमोस्फेयर. खास करके अगर झारखंड, रांची की ही जिस तरह से जनसंख्या बढ़ी है, उसी तरह से और शहरों में भी बढ़ी है. जितना ज्यादा बिल्डिंग कंक्रीट जंगल हो रहा है, और उसके हिसाब से कोई भी एक्शन अर्बनाइजेशन के साथ में नहीं हो पा रहा है जो एक्शन होना चाहिए था. आई थिंक वी नीड टू वर्क ऑन दैट ऑल्सो, सो दैट टू मिनिमाइज the heat, and even in the some guideline and policy needs to be done, taken up with the system government. Next. Challenges faced in the last heat wave. ये झारखंड में जो 2011 the population, the state was 3.29 crore, which is speculated to be around 4 crore at present. तो ये जनसंख्या की वृद्धि है, और खास करके जब इंडियन मेट्रोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट रांची के believes that the climate change is playing an important role to that. The rate of plantation of the trees is lesser to the rate which is the tree are being cut. The latest Indian state of forest report says increase the felling down of the trees has led to 1,108 square kilometer area land being left without trees. इतना ज्यादा वृक्ष कटा है डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस में, ताकि जो जितना अभी झारखंड में जो इतना बड़ा एरिया विदाउट ट्री हो गया है इनके कटने के बाद. नेक्स्ट. Ranchi, the capital of Jharkhand, is a hilly region. Hilly areas have a pleasant climate only till the time the population remain limited. Increased population will lead to the environmental imbalance. ये झारखंड का जो लास्ट ईयर का था, उसमें कैपिटल में जितनी भी हिली एरिया और इतनी ज्यादा ये क्लाइमेट चेंज में अंतर आई है, जनसंख्या जिसमें एक प्रमुख कारण है. Climate change has also affected the rains in the state. There has been a considerable change in the overall rain pattern. 1991 से 2000 तक जितना 1091.9 मिलीमीटर रेन होता था, और अभी देखें तो 2020 में वो घट करके 1022.9 मिलीमीटर हुआ. सो जो रेनफॉल का भी जो पैटर्न था, इट हैज changed due to climate change. Next. Learning from the previous heat waves. Heat waves had notified as a disaster. ये बहुत जरूरी है कि जिस तरह से झारखंड में वज्रपात को किया गया था नोटिफाइड एज ए डिजास्टर, और उसके बाद से बहुत सारी पॉलिसी में चेंज आई, उसी तरह से हम लोगों का प्रयास होना चाहिए कि हीट वेव को भी एज ए डिजास्टर वी शुड नोटिफाई. डेवलपमेंट ऑफ हीट अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम होना चाहिए, जो वंस अ थ्रेशोल्ड इज रीच्ड the system would alert city and state authorities to activate mitigation measures, जो कि अभी इस तरह से वार्निंग सिस्टम नहीं है. कम्युनिटी लेवल तक का इंफॉर्मेशन चैनल होना चाहिए. Alerts would also be broadcast to the public and would be coupled with a communication campaign aimed at risk population. The dissemination of alert occurs through the mobile text message poster. ये ऑलरेडी कहीं कहीं पे हो रहा है, लेकिन ये जो कैंपेन है और ये डिसेमिनेशन है वो उसको इसके स्केल को बढ़ाना चाहिए. इवन जितने भी है हम लोग स्कूल हेल्थ प्रोग्राम और ये सब में भी हम लोग चर्चा कर रहे हैं कि इसके गाइडलाइन में हाउ बेस्ट वी कैन एजुकेट पीपल, स्टूडेंट और टीचर्स लोग का इन्वॉल्वमेंट भी हो, सो दैट हाउ टू एड्रेस दोज नीड्स. नेक्स्ट. मिटिगेशन मेजर्स एस्टैब्लिश टू हेल्प दोज रिस्क. एक है कि ड्रिंकिंग वाटर कियोस्क एट हाई रिस्क एरिया सच एज ओपन मार्केट, कंस्ट्रक्शन साइट्स एंड बस स्टेशन. अभी भी बहुत जगह में समर में लोग लगाते हैं, अपने कॉर्पोरेट हाउस के कोई भी लगाते हैं, चाहे इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे करते हैं. तो ये कियोस्क और ये वी शुड ऑलवेज गवर्नमेंट के पॉलिसी में आना चाहिए. वी शुड इंश्योर कि हमारा शुद्ध पानी और ये मिलना चाहिए. एक्सपैंडिंग एक्सेस टू शेडेड एरियाज एंड शेल्टर, इस पे भी काम करने की जरूरत है. जो भी वल्नरेबल पॉपुलेशंस है स्लम में, कम्युनिटी में, उन लोगों को किस तरह से हम शेल्टर ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड मिले, और खास करके जो रिहाइड्रेशन थेरेपी हम लोगों को करने का जरूरत पड़े, उसके लिए प्रॉपर स्टॉक की उपलब्धता हो साइट पे, जगह जगह पे जहाँ पे काम हो रहा है, जहाँ पे वाटर शॉर्टेज है, वहां पे रिहाइड्रेशन सॉल्यूशन लोगों को मिल पाए. अभी भी बहुत जगह देखा गया है कि द मेडिकल स्टाफ एंड द ऑफिस स्टाफ, दोज people should also know the signs and symptoms of the heat stroke still, and ये नहीं होने के चलते भी जो डेथ है बहुत जगह जानकारी नहीं होने के भी चलते होती है. इसलिए वी शुड इंश्योर कि लोगों को ट्रेनिंग मिले, लोगों को जानकारी मिले, एंड द रिसोर्सेज जो उपलब्ध होना चाहिए. Even in the medical system also, there are at the community level also, Sahiya, ANM and other people should also know how to ensure and how to manage the heat strokes patients. Next. So with this, I think I have tried to capture some of the information which has really causing and impacting the heat waves and drought, due to drought also. So I think we should also see how best we can involve the capacity building process and guideline at the respective department. The convergence action is really missing, so we need to also work on that, so that the convergence action may also, with the health department, lot of respective department who really involve themselves in the process, like ICDS is there, rural development department is there, even education department, they should also have the separate guideline for the staffs and down the line people. So with this word, I would like to close here, and maybe Rajiv ji will add few more things, as he is having a lot of experience in Bihar and Jharkhand, which was the same earlier. So I'll request him to also add, because this is going to be a serious issue in near future as the urbanization and development is taking place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Subirji. I'll come last, and then I'll talk about Bihar and some of the questions that may be coming from the panel. But before that, considering also the time that we are hitting the timeline, can we ask Mr. Bimal from the Synergy Sansthan, the co-founder, to come, please, if you are available?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Thank
I
you,
can see
Rajiv
you.
ji.
Welcome, Bimal. Go ahead.
ओके ओके सो मेरा नाम विमल है और मैं मध्य प्रदेश में काम करता हूँ सिनर्जी संस्थान, खास करके जो वेस्टर्न पार्ट और साउथर्न पार्ट है मध्य प्रदेश का, जिनमें खास करके बड़वानी, खरगोन, खंडवा, हरदा, बैतूल, नर्मदापुरम, इन जिलों में सिनर्जी का काम है। और हमारा जो पिछले सालों का कुछ एक्सपीरियंस रहा है, मेनली हम लोग एडोलसेंट और यूथ लीडरशिप पे काम करते हैं रूरल एंड ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी के साथ में। और इन पर्टिकुलर पार्ट्स में जो ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी है वो गोंड, कोरकू, कोल, भील, भिलाला और पाटेला जो कम्युनिटी है वो यहाँ पर है। और पर्टिकुलरली अगर इसमें हम पिछले सालों का टेम्परेचर का पैटर्न देखें तो इसमें 39 टू 52 तक जो है टेम्परेचर का पैटर्न रहा है। लास्ट ईयर अगर हम देखें तो बड़वानी, खरगोन और खंडवा यहाँ पे लगभग 52 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक जो है टेम्परेचर गया है। और उसके कारण अगर हम देखें पूरा खास करके जो मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटी है, ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी है, उस एरिया में हमारा काम है और वहाँ का जो अनुभव है, ये पूरी कम्युनिटीज जो है वो एक क्रॉप पे अपना पूरा इनका लाइवलीहुड जो है वो टिका हुआ होता है और बहुत कम लैंड होल्डिंग इनके पास में है। मेनली स्मॉल और मार्जिनल फार्मर्स यहाँ पर हैं। तो अगर हम देखें पूरा हीट वेव का प्रभाव जो है, बेसिकली एक तो सबसे बड़ा इनका ड्रिंकिंग वाटर पे असर बहुत ज़्यादा पड़ता है। और इन पर्टिकुलर एरियाज में 1 किलोमीटर से 3 किलोमीटर तक लगभग 3 से 4 महीने इनको पानी लेने के लिए जाना पड़ता है। और उसके बाद में भी अगर देखें तो वो छोटी छोटी जो ये झीरिया है, कुएं हैं या उस तरह की जगह से पानी लेते हैं, जो बहुत ही अच्छा पानी नहीं है, कॉन्टेमिनेटेड पानी है। और उसकी वजह से कई तरह की फिर जो वाटर बॉर्न डिजीज जो है इन कम्युनिटीज में देखने को मिलती है। अगर देखें तो इन पर्टिकुलर एरिया में डायरिया के केसेस इस पूरे 4 महीने में बहुत ज्यादा हाई होते हैं और इसकी वजह से डेथ्स भी बहुत ज्यादा, पर्टिकुलरली बच्चों में डेथ्स बहुत ज्यादा है इसका। पूरा अगर हम देखें इसकी वजह से बारिश का पैटर्न में पिछले 3-4 सालों में, 5 सालों में काफी बदलाव आया है। या तो बहुत इकट्ठा अचानक 2-3 दिन बारिश होती है या फिर महीने महीने भर तक बारिश नहीं हो रही है। तो उसकी वजह से चूंकि ये पूरी कम्युनिटी जो है वो एक ही फसल अपना जो बारिश पे आधारित है वो ले पाती है, वो भी अब एक तरह से पूरी तरह से प्रभावित हुआ है पिछले कुछ सालों में। और लास्ट ईयर भी देखें तो वो फसलें पूरी तरह से प्रभावित हुई है और उसकी वजह से उनका फूड सिक्योरिटी का और लाइवलीहुड का जो सिक्योरिटी है वो एक तरह से पूरा डगमगा गया। और माइग्रेशन जो है इन एरियाज में काफी बड़ा है। पिछले साल भी अगर हम देखें तो और अगर माइग्रेशन का रेट काफी आगे हुआ है। और यहाँ से कम्युनिटीज फिर अलग अलग पास के जो शहर हैं, चाहे इंदौर है, औरंगाबाद है, मुंबई है, बेंगलोर है, भोपाल है, इन एरियाज में फिर माइग्रेट करके जाते हैं। और इस पूरे अगर उसमें पार्ट में देखें, खास करके लड़कियों और महिलाओं का, जब चूंकि पानी की कमी है, पीने के पानी की कमी है, तो काफी दूरी तक उनको ये पानी लेने के लिए जाना होता है और उसमें काफी समय भी उनका लगता है। तो उनके स्कूल और शिक्षा पे भी काफी इसका प्रभाव पड़ रहा है। क्योंकि हम लोगों का काम डायरेक्टली एडोलसेंट यूथ और बच्चों के साथ में है, तो वो हमें देखने को मिलता है। कुपोषण के मामले में बहुत ज्यादा इंक्रीज हुआ है। अगर पर्टिकुलरली कोरकू कम्युनिटी के अंदर हम देखें तो बाकी जो डेटा स्टेट का हम देखते हैं कि 20-25% तक है, लेकिन यहाँ पे 45 से 50% तक पर्टिकुलरली कोरकू कम्युनिटी में जो है मैनिपुलेशन के केसेस देखने को मिलते हैं। और साथ ही साथ अगर हम देखें कि जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन भी यहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं उनके सामने क्या चैलेंजेस है, तो हमें लगता है कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बहुत पर्टिकुलर किसी थीमेटिक एरिया पे काम कर रहे होते हैं, पर वो इसको एक क्रॉस कटिंग इशू की तरह कैसे देखे और अपने कामों में कैसे इन्वॉल्व करे, तो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस की भी अंडरस्टैंडिंग उस तरह से नहीं है। तो हमें लगता है कि बहुत ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं जो इन पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटीज, खास करके ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज के साथ में काफी लंबे समय से काम कर रहे हैं, पर अगर उनको और थोड़ा इस तरह से किया जाए, उनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बढ़ाया जाए और उसको एक क्रॉस कटिंग थीम की तरह, क्योंकि उनका कम्युनिटी के साथ में जुड़ाव है, इसको अगर हम वहाँ पे बिल्ड करें तो वो मुझे लगता है कि वो सभी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चैलेंज फेस करती है। सिनर्जी ने भी पिछले कुछ समय में अपने आप को इस दिशा में ले जाने का काम किया है, जोड़ने का काम किया है, और उसको अपने काम के साथ जोड़ के कैसे देखें वो हम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। ये पूरा एरिया चूंकि नर्मदा वैली वाला एरिया है, एंड यहाँ पे पूरा नर्मदा पे 2-3 बांध है, और आसपास की और नदियों में जैसे तवा है, वर्गी डैम्स हैं, और उसकी वजह से हरदा और होशंगाबाद और खंडवा बड़वानी के एरिया में सिंचाई का काम भी काफी होता है। ये देखने को आया है कि पिछले कुछ सालों से जो प्लेन एरिया है उसमें 3 खेती किसान करने लगे हैं, और खास करके मूंग की खेती का रकबा काफी ज्यादा बढ़ा है। और मूंग की खेती आप सब लोगों को पता है कि वो ग्रीष्मकालीन ये फसल है, और उसमें पानी की जरूरत बहुत ज्यादा होती है। मतलब 2 महीने की खेती में ही लगभग 6 से 7 पानी उस फसल में लगते हैं। तो उसकी वजह से बहुत ज्यादा वाटर का एक कंजम्पशन जो है वो बढ़ा है। दूसरी तरफ देखें कि सरकार ने इन सारे एरियाज को ग्रीष्मकालीन ऋतु में जो है पूरा बैन किया हुआ है कि वाटर का इस तरह से उपयोग करना, नए वाटर वेल या ये डिगिंग करना, इस तरह का पूरी तरह से बैन है, क्योंकि ये एक सूखा क्षेत्र की तरह घोषित किया हुआ है। पर उसके बावजूद भी ये बड़े संख्या में जो है इस तरह की खेती के पैटर्न भी देखने को मिल रहे हैं जिसमें पानी का उपयोग बहुत ज्यादा होता है। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये पूरा एक साइकिल की तरह है। हीट वेव से शुरू होके बारिश के पैटर्न में किस तरह से उसमें बदलाव हो रहा है। अल्टीमेटली अगर हम देखें तो स्वास्थ्य के जो मुद्दे हैं, शिक्षा के जो मुद्दे हैं, माइग्रेशन के मुद्दे हैं, या फिर जेंडर के जो मुद्दे हैं वो यहाँ पर देखने को मिलते हैं। तो इससे मुझे लगता है कि बहुत चूंकि हम लोग पार्ट भी रहे हैं काफी सारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट प्लान के, पर वो प्लान बनने के बाद उसको और फोकस करके हम कैसे काम करें, खास करके जैसे फ्लड या उसको लेके काफी ज्यादा प्लानिंग के साथ में काम होता है, पर हीट वेव को लेके उतना प्लानिंग के साथ में काम नहीं हो रहा है। तो मुझे लगता है इसको और फोकस करके हमारे प्लानिंग में, और जो मशीनरीज है वो इसको कैसे नीचे लेके जाए, उस दिशा में हमें काम करने की।
Thank you, Vimalji, for pointing out many different things together with Raviji. Um, so I will now speak a little bit about the Bihar on 3 specific questions which had been asked, and then I'll also take up if there are questions from the participant. So in terms of Bihar, what we have learned from the previous heat waves and so we're happy to inform that Bihar still among many 2 states that I have heard, there is a specific heat action plan, so which is there for the state, and there are more than 15 departments which have a committed action, both for the preparedness and also for the response. Of course, health comes the first. So on one count that it has an action plan, on the second count, they do meet. While the action from the disaster management department is there, invariably Bihar Disaster Management Authority is very active, and all the department, and as I am talking today, 2 things has happened. Yesterday only they had convened a meeting and all department participated and presented their preparedness action, which they committed to do that. And if we look at the plan, which in case required, I'll share with the group as well, or Sphere can share when I'll share with the Sphere. So the actions are there. So what they are supposed to do from January till June, what they are supposed to do beforehand in March and April. So on that part, it is there, and they have learned the action. So that's one part of it. The second part, which was asked, that what were the challenges last year? Challenges, again, what Dr. Bhanu has said. So along with Uttar Pradesh, if you look at the newspaper, you will find that there have been hundreds of deaths, and I really telling it responsibly that the deaths were reported which was heat related. But there are 2 main issues there. So while the newspaper may say these are heat related deaths, there's a lot of cases of misclassification which has happened. So one, that not all deaths which is happening outside of maybe hospital, or even some deaths which is natural deaths and happening in the hospital, are going for the postmortem. So there's no way that based on the symptom, it can be concluded that this is due to heat waves. And this has been contested even before the central team, which has visited the state or otherwise. So misclassification issue is there. So attributing deaths to heat waves, that's a problem. So that's challenge number one in terms of activating any action. Challenge number two, which Dr. Bhanu has also talked about in case of Uttar Pradesh, remains same for Bihar. Heat waves are not recognized for multi-sectoral action, meaning when I'm saying actual action, not in terms of the plan, because till such time that you are affected and you're hospitalized, the action mostly doesn't happen. So that's the second challenge that has been faced, and this is being faced year on year. But some of the strength that we have in the state is that we have set up here Bihar Mausam Seva Kendra, which is coming under IMD and state government initiative. They have also launched an application which can give you very pinpointed geographical forecast till Gram Panchayat level, which is available. Now, but this is one part of the action, meaning that they do have these advisories, but whether these advisories are being read at the community level and these advisories are being acted on by the various departments who have committed for the actions, the answer is not a very happy answer, meaning that actions are not happening in accordance to the advisory which is being given. So that is the challenge which is happening. The third thing which is happening and being done, those are that various departments have advisories given. So as I'm talking today, last week, Education Department has sent out an advisory to all district education officers and copied to block education officers that certain measures need to be taken to better manage the effect of heat waves on the children. Because closing down the school is the last option, which is recommended. Before that, having availability of water and other measures are to be taken. So that is being given. On the last point, what could be some of the look forward or some of the research thing that can be. So what I was talking in my initial address, not much. So the one issue is that collectively, meaning the academia, which will also be represented here, then all other civil society partners, IIG partners, is that how can we avoid this misclassification? Because unless it is reported that, okay, I am or the population is affected by the heat wave, any action is very difficult, which Subirji has also talked in his address. In Jharkhand, it is not or it is not recognized as one of the disaster. And if it is not recognized, then the actions may not happen. So the misclassification, knowing that what is the numbers or the population group which is being affected, I think that is one that how, taking beyond the clinical manifestation and then having a public health approach to it could be one such research area or the action area that we could be taking up. Second, I think as in civil society organization or IAG, we must be also putting forward, and this I'm not speaking because I represent UNICEF, but if you look at any which way, those who are being affected mostly are also having the lowest capacity to deal with it, be it informal worker, be it children, be it women, or be it those who are living in urban areas with structures or maybe categorizing as a slum or slum-like settlement. So these 3 or 4 groups are going to be mostly affected. So I think how we can put them into the planning and implementation process are going to be the critical area. So I think initially these 2 areas I feel that should be in the future a challenge for all of us. In addition to background challenges of climate change and increasingly every year going to be a hotter year going forward. All those are the larger challenges, but in terms of the actionable challenges, which can be further research questions, is going to be these 2. So this is from the state of Bihar and some of the engagement also. So UNICEF as an agency engages on all these issues, both with the IAG and also various government, DMD and BSDMA. So that is from my side. Any question, Sphere team, you can see there in the chat, which I may be missing.
Yes, sir. There's a question from Reena Chaudhary. Can we have any manual for school-going children as a precautionary measures to beat this heat wave?
So any panel member wants to take it up? Otherwise, we have some experience from Bihar that I can talk. Go ahead, Subir ji, Bimal ji, or Dr. Bhanu, if you are back.
Especially in Jharkhand, we are working on the school health guideline, and in that we are keeping some of the point so that the student as well as teachers are going to learn by those document, and as the manual come out, this will again, the vision is to how to ensure the information to up to the community level institutions. So yes, I think it is we need to work on that, and this can be one of the process and way to share the information. What we actually learn from the various people at the Jharkhand at the consultation process. So yes, we can do that. This will help in doing that. Thank you.
Dr. Saab, anything from your side, or Bimal ji, if you have something from your side?
ये क्षितिज जी का क्वेश्चन है
Okay.
about water security and drought in मध्य प्रदेश, कॉटन फार्मिंग कैसे अफेक्ट करता है। तो आई थिंक अगर आप देखें थोड़ा सा हिस्ट्री में, तो बड़वानी जो है वो कॉटन फार्मिंग के लिए और ट्रेडिंग के लिए एक बड़ा हब हुआ करता था। और कॉटन फार्मिंग भी अगेन, जैसे मैं मूंग का बात कर रहा था, कॉटन में भी बारिश, पानी का काफी ज्यादा आवश्यकता होती है। और पर्टिकुलरली अगर बड़वानी में अगर हम देखें, एक ब्लॉक है पार्टी, और वहाँ पे उन्होंने अपना एक ट्रेडिशनल वाटर सिक्योरिटी का एक तरीका इजाद किया था, जिसको पार्ट बोलते हैं। तो जितने भी नाले थे उनके पास में वो पार्ट लगा के, और फिर उस वाटर को कैसे जो है यूज करें अपने फसलों में। पर अब जिस तरह से पूरा, अगर हम हीट वेव का भी प्रभाव देख रहे हैं, बड़वानी सबसे ज्यादा टेम्परेचर वहाँ पे हाई हुआ है, और उसकी वजह से पूरा ये जो नाले हैं या बारिश का पैटर्न जिस तरह से बदला है, उसकी वजह से अब ये भी सारे जो है इफेक्ट हो रहे हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि जो भी ट्रेडिशनल तरीके भी हैं, उनको भी हम कैसे वाटर सिक्योरिटी के और रेन वाटर को कैसे हम ये कर सकते हैं, उन तरीकों को भी वापस हमको रिवाइव करने की जरूरत है, उनको साथ में लेकर चलने की जरूरत है। वो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है अगर हम ये सारी चीजों को देख रहे हैं। एंड ऑल्सो मुझे लगता है कि इस तरह के फसलों की तरफ भी जाने की जरूरत है जिनमें पानी कम मात्रा में उपयोग हो, तो वो काफी अच्छा होगा, मुझे लगता है।
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Bimal ji. I have just shared an advisory which has gone from Education Department to all school, which I was referring in my conversation in the group. So maybe you can see, because no, there's no such manual as such, but this is in the form of advisory, which is like, as you know, that our memory is as good as the last letter or last email. And in the government, what works most is the most written letter or the advisory that goes. So I guess the one I have shared in terms of this school, and Bimal ji has already responded to that question. Any other questions? And if not, then Vishnu, any question which is coming up?
No, sir. I think we can take the questions after the session, second
Oh, I
session
see.
also, so we can
Okay.
go on.
Sure, thank you. So maybe we'll formally close this part of the session, And I will now invite, because we have been talking about, because we'll be now entering into some of the technicalities of it. So one of the study which is done by IGSS, Indo-German Civil Service Society, which is about the heat wave impact in urban areas, particular focus on the urban poor. So Arvind ji, welcome.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. You can hear me, no?
Yes, can. Loud and clear.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. There was a little problem, technical problem in checking in, but I'm happy that I'm here.
No, no, welcome.
बस राजीव जी ये कह रहा था कि इंडो जर्मन पहले था, अब इंडो ग्लोबल सोशल
Oh,
सर्विस
I'm so
सोसाइटी है
sorry.
पिछले 20 साल से. So that is how it
My
is.
apologies.
Not a problem, sir. Not a problem. But thank you for the opportunity. I'm really happy to share the presentation here. Let me see if I can share the screen. I think I should be able to. Yes. G. So the difference here, or Rajiv ji, just to add to what you have mentioned, that whilst we would want to add more technicalities to it and make our studies technical, the approach that we, at least in IGSS, had, or we generally have in our intervention at this stage, is that ki technicality ko to hum dekh lenge और देखना चाहिए, and there are many experts on heat waves, but how can we capture the people's lived realities, their challenges, their issues? And that was the primary reason why we moved into the study on heat wave and Indian cities. And it's an insight into the awareness practices losses due to heat waves, focusing on especially the urban poor groups and marginal communities. So just to add to what Rajiv ji has mentioned, and to kind of re-emphasize that the effort was to get a little more understanding on the numbers, the figures of what is really the impact on impact of heat waves on people, on communities, so that we can put forth this argument that it's not anecdotal, it is not, some stories that we hear from the ground, but actually there are issues, there are numbers to it, and how do we take the policy argument forward. So that was the intent of this, and this is an exploratory effort that we are undertaking. So that is the understanding that we have moved in with this study. IGSS, very briefly, I would just like to put up what we do is that we are a developmental organization that is based on truth, justice, freedom, and equity. We are very old organization, but we try to do new things as well. There are different thematics. I am working in the urban thematic, which is why I'm speaking on urban poverty issues. And these are the areas and spaces that we work with. तो मैं यहीं पे बोल देता हूँ, राजीव जी मैं आपसे संपर्क करूंगा, सुबीर जी मैं उनसे भी संपर्क करूंगा, शायद हमारे साथी ऑलरेडी कनेक्टेड होंगे, पर आई विल बी रीचिंग आउट टू यू एनीवेज and connecting on what could be done on the issues that we have mentioned, that will probably take up for discussion as well.
Sure.
So yes, very quickly into the study. Why this study? Very simple, that to assess the awareness levels, perceptions of individuals about heat waves, identify the sources of information and where they are getting the information about heat waves. Third point was very critical for us, that to really understand the economic losses and what is the nature of those losses. If you could if you can go into that aspect, losses, especially because we are also working on climate change aspects, and internationally there is a huge demand or discussion on loss and damage. But aside from the mortality and the casualty, which is of course happening due to disasters, but this continuous loss of livelihood, of incomes, is something that is still not recognized, especially in disasters like heat wave. That is the aspect that we really wanted to highlight. So objective number 3 was the most critical for us. Number 4 is that how do we take recommendations and take it forward, and number 5 of how do we have effective strategies to deal with heat waves. Methodology was very simple, that we had a Kobo Collect app, and we use that to collect data from 16 cities, 100 samples. So this is the sample size, and these are the cities that we are working in. Findings, I'll straight away go to the findings. I hope you can see the screens. Firstly, on the findings, we were very clear that out of the 16 cities that we kind of studied, only 3 had heat wave action plans, HAPs. The rest were just working on handouts or one-pager guidelines or notes that were circulating. But heat wave action plans, which are mandated to be done by the ULVs, are not being done. At least that was what we heard from our study. On the aspect of awareness, though many people, 95% of the respondents agreed that they know about heat waves or have heard about heat waves, but they really couldn't distinguish the exact reason of why heat waves are happening, what are the associated aspects with it, especially on the aspect of climate change. So many could not connect heat wave to climate change, but were talking about heat waves as increased temperature, lack of rain. So the understanding what we made out was very shallow, and would have heard about it, but doesn't know the issue really well, and the aspect that it is detrimental to their health and even life. That understanding is still not there. On information source, I think I have a yeah, just messaging my colleagues here to, yeah. So on information source, what we kind of got to know was that the aside from television, newspaper, which has the sort of fundamental media through which people get their messaging, phones and WhatsApp were great sources of information. Government messaging was still very less, and through posters, through internet, 7 to 23% through sites. So government could have done a lot more to take out the messaging on heat waves, and that is something that we feel was the respondent said was not reaching out to them. Family remained 52%, which was through family discussions, through elders sharing what heat waves are and what you should be doing. That still remained a 52%, which is a substantially high number in our finding for information of source on heat waves. Second, on impact felt, this is impact felt of the different kinds of impacts that the communities and people are facing, which of course navigated or moved from fatigue, sunburn, dehydration, headache, so on and so forth, but also mental health was discussed. So the interesting part here for us was the kind of variation and the different impacts that people were facing because of heat waves, and the nuances even within those impacts that is what was very interesting for us, and the fact that many people were attributing mental health challenges due to heat waves. That number was critical and new, and that's something that we were probably also not expecting to such an extent. What were they doing to mitigate at an individual level? So the positive was that 93% were doing something to lessen the impact of heat waves. But again, you have a huge variety of the efforts that they were taking at an individual level. One being taking more water, 73, using headgear, any protective headgear, 64, adjusting daily schedules, cutting down on activities, so on and so forth. Food, 52%, closing windows and openings in their homes, or using electronic not electronic appliances, cooling appliances. A certain figure was also kind of reported. Measures taken at community level, as different from an individual level, the measures taken at community level were very less. So that's a point that we probably thought was very important for us to kind of highlight, that individually people were very willing to take efforts, but at community level that was not happening. At the nature of expenses, the kind of expenses that people were incurring because of heat waves, I'll just run down the list and share with you. Was for water, clothing items, appliances, healthcare, electricity in huge numbers, over 50%. And then there were little changes in days off, the number of days that they have to take leaves, change in houses and existing their housing designs also was reported, change in modes of transportation, and some other expenses. What was very interesting was the point on losses. Third point, that leave the 19% that reported a very small loss. This is when we are asking the amount of electricity that you have spent, the more number of healthcare trips that you've had to make, the more money that you're spending for buying appliances, all that combined, approximately 6,000 is what they have reported that they are spending additionally for heat wave related or the increased heat related expenses that the communities are facing, and the average was coming to around 6,000 rupees, and the breakups is what you can clearly see. So even if you look at a 29% that is spending anything between 2,000 to 5,000, or a 18% that is spending anything between a 5,000 to 10,000, or a 12% that is spending 10,000 to 20,000, is a huge sum if you are a urban poor family and a daily wage worker in that sense. So it might not impact me, but it impacts these population groups a lot, and that is what we have tried to report. Coming to recommendations quickly, considering the lack of time, and then hopefully have some discussions on it. Recommendations from whatever that we've picked up in front of you. First, on awareness and capacity building aspects, that public awareness campaigns through different set of actors is very important. Second point, I'm flagging it off here. We would probably want to hear your opinion, that we felt that especially in states where heat waves are happening, except for, let's say, states like Odisha, where heat wave terminology was very easily understood and picked up by people even while asking questions. There was a little confusion between heat wave, loo, hot wind, garam hawa, so on and so forth. So we felt that the appropriate terminology in local languages is absolutely critical, and that has to be done ASAP. Otherwise, there is still a lack of understanding at a community level of what heat waves are and the damage that they would cause, as opposed to just the usual summer hot summer time that we have in our northern and the eastern belt. Third point, we felt that like a Swachh Bharat mission, like some specific missions where public announcements and other traditional methods are adopted, we should club heatwave awareness with other missions like Swachh Bharat. And maybe while collecting garbage, we always used to hear these nice sirens going around. Can we use such other existing mechanisms to send the message on heat waves? So that is one set of recommendation. On health and nutrition, these are actually some of them are already covered by our friends who shared their experiences before. This is what we have come from our study, and we probably need to come together to decide what we really want to push. Second, on health and nutrition aspects, that people are spending a lot of money on water, on ORS, on food, on supplements that they are having to take to deal with supplements in the form of traditional items that they're having to buy. But the fact that they're doing it, can we, so that's point number 3 actually, can we combine this with either PDS, with either schools or different sort of mechanisms where this delivery can happen of ORS, of caps and other essential items that really need to go in as heat wave kits and be given to at least the poor communities and urban poor worker communities who are impacted by this the most. On health and nutrition, someone also mentioned that helpline numbers are very useful. Rescue vehicles with a set of medical teams would be very useful. First point, that health wave impacts are so diverse, and our health systems are not really trained and equipped to deal with the diverse impacts that are happening. So we need to really prepare and accordingly change, at least for the months that we are impacted by heat waves, and recognize the differentiated health impacts that our communities face. Next set of recommendations is that we need at least 3-4 possible levels of interventions in our urban scenario. One is individual, one is community, which is very low at this level. Individual people are doing what they're doing. Ward is a urban governance space that we have. Is effectively, unlike our rural counterparts, we don't have strong wards or ward level, local level engagements. City is what the ULB does. So there needs to be a set of actions. So whatever heat wave guidelines that we prepare has to fall in this sort of urban governance structure, and that is the real challenge for us, and should be the real focus to ensure long-term sustainability at the level of individual and household, uh, especially on aspect, point number one, on aspect of compensation for vulnerable communities. They are losing out on money. They are losing out on resources, hard-earned resources and incomes. How do we compensate? How do we document that and we compensate? So this is the effort that we are trying to do now. Maybe we can have we'll have to think of what could be the different means of compensation, especially for informal workers and people who are losing out on incomes. Point number two, subsidy on electricity and appliances are already happening in different forms and kinds, but do we want to top it up with other sort of subsidies that help them cope with heat waves? Do we want to do that? That's point number two. Inclusion of vulnerable groups has to be mentioned, very specifically mentioned with their names, with their specific kind of vulnerabilities. Generality of saying that they are vulnerable groups or marginal groups is not going to work. To have those specificities is very important in the guidelines, and there is a host of population groups that I've mentioned here. Last point, that people are already doing alterations and redesigning of their retrofitting of their existing houses. Do we want to try new methods and means like cool roof mechanism, which have already been done? But can we look at retrofitting with a better air circulation, so on and so forth? But keeping in mind that we are not just talking about the middle classes and upwards, but also talking about slums where a huge chunk of our people and communities live. Otherwise, all our guidelines and solutions sadly end up benefiting the middle class and the upper, or we only end up talking about electric vehicles when we are, let's say, talking about climate change. So that should not be the aim and the goal. Last slide from my side. At community level heat resilience actions. So we have city level actions, we need to have community level actions, which is missing. And sadly, all the community level actions are at max talking of how do we give water to our neighbors, water to animals, but there could be other community level actions that need to be activated. Cooling centers for public relief, already mentioned. Provision of water, already mentioned. But what are, number four, what are the minimum standards and guidelines for it? I don't know if such standards exactly exist, but standards basis the number of population, the size of the city, the vulnerability of the community. Such kind of standards have to emerge. Otherwise, what ULBs are doing is that ki दो हमने पानी का 10-15 हमने पानी का पॉइंट लगा दिया, हमारा हीट वेव एक्शन प्लान खत्म हो गया, बहुत बढ़िया, यही हम करेंगे. So that is a challenge that we faced even in our engagement with ULBs. Mandatory preparation of heat wave action plans, guidelines and SOPs are required. If it comes from the top, it will be easier for the cities and the states to adopt and pick it up. And last, at a more long-term level, that whatever guidelines that we have of heat wave action plans is just restricted to heat wave action plan, but there are these other set of actions like climate action plan, urban planning or master plans that happen. Our heat wave actions do not talk to these long-term planning processes of the city. Unless we do that, unless we sort of mainstream heat wave into our other planning practices, we will be dealing with heat waves from a year-to-year kind of approach, but not from a long-term perspective. That was the last point that we had. Looking forward to the suggestions, ideas, discussions of how we can take this forward, especially Rajiv ji, सुधीर जी, अगर आप साथ ही भी बता पाएं कि सुधीर जी चीज को हम दूसरे राज्यों में, शहरों में कैसे लेके जा सकते हैं, हम will be happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you from my side. I'll pass it on to Rajiv ji again. Sorry if I've taken additional minutes. Huh?
No, thank you so much. Absolutely. This is a very important study. And as far as Bihar goes, I mean, only 50-second response from my side. We still have a very low level of urbanization. Having said that, that did not absolve ourselves from taking action. Because whatever little urbanization that we have a very, so to say, very poor of urbanization, so to say, our structure, etc. So we'll be happy to collaborate on anything that I'm already in touch with your colleague. Maybe other participants, if they have any question to IGSS team.
राजीव जी, अगर मैं एक पॉइंट ऐड कर पाऊं कि अभी हम
Go ahead,
अर्बन नहीं हैं, अभी हम अर्बन नहीं हैं, लेकिन आगे 5-6 साल में चीजें बदलेंगी और हमारा तो मानना ही है कि अगर क्लासिफिकेशन थोड़ा शेयर करें, जो बड़े बड़े गांव हैं टेक्निकली वो अर्बन हो चुके हैं. हम
Absolutely.
we don't want to recognize the
Yeah.
urbanization that's happening, that's a policy issue that we
True,
have,
true.
but
Yeah.
that's the reality that we face.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Thank you, Arvind sir, for sharing these findings from IGSS, for this study and also the recommendations coming from your side. Now, I think we can take the questions last after the second session. And now I would like to invite you, Mr. Mihir Bhatt, sir, for the moderating the second session. Mihir Bhatt is an Indian architect, researcher, and urban planner. He is the director of AIDMI, an organization dedicated to mitigation the impact of disaster risk. And so now I would like to invite Mr. Mihir Bhatt for moderating the second session.
Thank you, Vishnuji. Mihir Bhai will join. He having some changes in the flight schedule and suddenly, so he may join in between from the airport. But we move ahead as per our schedule. Thank you so much, Rajiv ji and Arvind Bhai. So interesting discussion has been done, presentation, recent findings, as well as many aspects related to heat wave risk management and preparedness. Thank you so much. Let's move ahead. We would like to request Professor Ajit Tyagi Sahib to share his thoughts and presentation on heat wave forecast and early warnings in India. Please.
Yeah, very good afternoon and compliments to Sphere India to organize this multi-stakeholder consultation prior to the onset of summer season this year. We had a very interesting and insightful presentations from the states and also from the IGSS about the urban aspect of the heat waves. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, very clearly.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Okay, thank you. Now, topic given to me is on heat wave forecasting warning, and which is a very important part of back, please. Let's start. Okay. Now, a lot of issues have been raised, and I had been in the business of weather forecasting for last 50 years. And we have been issuing weather warnings, forecasts of the heat waves. Somehow, its action, follow-up action by the various agencies was lacking. And I'm sorry to say that even our headquarters of IMD is in Delhi. The Delhi, in spite of our various interactions with the Delhi administration, there had been no action plan, heat action plan for the Delhi prepared by or followed by the Delhi administration. So this is the state. It's very sorry state, but then I am happy that in recent years, after the two important events or 2 or 3 important events, awareness about the heat wave management has started to a great degree. The first trigger was the Odisha heat wave deaths of more than 3,000 people in 1998, and they did start a very good heat action plan, state level heat action plan, which addresses all government departments what actions to be taken. It was followed by another event in Andhra Pradesh, 2005. Again, 3,000 people died. So some awareness about the need to have heat action plan was formed, followed by deaths of more than 800 people in Ahmedabad city in 2010 May. So that led to a real, need and systematic need to develop heat action plans. And then the NDMA formed, and now we have structured heat action plans being advocated by the NDMA, but somehow many states and cities have not yet implemented as brought out by my colleagues in their discussions and presentation. Now, as brought out Rajivji, yes, we are in face of ongoing continuous increase in the temperatures because of climate change and the anthropogenic activities like deforestation, land use change and all that. So we have now, next slide, please. Okay, now heat wave is affecting now globally. There is absolutely even the colder regions of like Siberia, and they do had heat waves in 2022. And this is a silent killer and doesn't get attention like the cyclones, floods, or drought, or the thunderstorm. But they have now become killers of the dimensions of which is unprecedented and unheard of. In 2003, in Europe, 70,000 people. We talked of Badia, 60 people died, and we are concerned. So you can imagine the developed countries facing such a wrath of heat waves. And again, in 2022, a similar number of people died in Europe. Now, somehow in the tropics, we are adapted to temperatures. Like in Europe, any temperature beyond 30, 35, it becomes unbearable. In tropics, country like India, we were used to heat waves, hot summers and all that. So adaptability to that degree is okay. But with the ongoing climate change, if the temperatures keeps on increasing, probably our threshold to cope up with the heat waves will diminish, and we also may face an exponential increase in the deaths. So we have to be prepared. Next slide. So now next 3-4 slides are related to the ongoing temperatures, global temperatures, which are record temperatures. 2003, the warmest year. Last 10 months, from June to February, have been the warmest months. So this is now become, I think, rising temperatures has become a fact of life. Next, and we have to be prepared for that. Next, please. So these are the trends. Yeah, next, please. So key message is this, that yes, temperature has increased and we are touching 1.4 degrees centigrade, and that threshold of 1.5 degrees centigrade we wanted to keep by 2030, probably may be reached much earlier. So these are the key messages, that we are living in a very hot world, which is going to become hotter as the years pass. Next. Next, please. Okay. So this is what from December 2023 to February 2024, the departures which are seen in the global temperature. So you can see that almost all parts of the globe, their temperatures have risen. Fortunately, for the Indian subcontinent, temperature rise had not been so significant till February 2024. So we didn't have much of heat as of now. But as the forecast goes, we may be facing from April onwards a rise in temperature, heat waves. Next. Okay, this is what the February temperature was there. This is the warmest February, and from June 2023 to February 2024, 9 months have been the warmest months, and last 10 years have been the warmest years. Next. So it is an unequivocal And because of their health effects, there have been guidance provided by the WMO, WHO, which talks about the heat index and warnings and the mitigation and the adaptation measures. Next. So the one challenge lies is that heat wave, there is no uniform or standard universally accepted definition, because it is got wide variations depending on the climatic conditions. Hot regions will have a different impact of the high temperatures, where the coastal areas where humidity is there, it may have a different impact of the temperatures. And similarly, the hill stations, the coastal stations, the inland stations, tropics, subtropics, polar regions. So it has to be a location-specific, area-specific heatwave definitions, which is being followed worldwide. Next. Essentially, it is the higher temperatures persisting for 2 to 3 days. That is the bottom line, which defines the heat wave. Next. So there are now heat wave definitions. Most common is based on the maximum temperature and its departure from the normal. So that if it is very higher than the normal temperatures which are supposed to be there, then we define, and if it persists for 2-3 days. But then now we realize that it's not the maximum temperature, but the minimum temperature, because the discomfort which happens in the night because of the higher minimum temperature contributes to the discomfort and the morbidity and mortality of the heat waves. So this is also important. Heat indices have been developed based on the relative humidity, temperature, also the percentile based on the long series of data. And because the problem is that the thresholds determination is a challenge, that again that varies from place to place. So unless we have a good data of health, it is difficult to come out with the thresholds. And for that, we have to depend on the meteorological data alone, and the percentile of 90, 95, 99% is a good mark. Next slide, please. So this is the IMD criteria of defining the heat waves, which I am sure most of you know. And normally in the plains, it is more than 40 degrees centigrade temperature if it is there, and the departure is 4.5 to 6.4. And for severe heat wave, more than 45 degrees centigrade, and the temperature departures of more than 6.4 for 6.5. And now we have also introduced hot night criteria. So, and for the coastal areas, it is 37 degrees centigrade threshold, and for the hill stations, it is 30 degrees centigrade. So we have tried to include the spatial variation of the climatic areas, and also bring in the humidity and the winds and the radiation also into consideration in the heat indices, which is being developed now. Next. So this is what the heat index forecast. It incorporates all these factors which I mentioned just now. Next. तो हीट वेव की क्लाइमेटोलॉजी, जैसा आप जानते हैं कि फरवरी एक अच्छा महीना है ओवरऑल, बट मार्च से गर्मी शुरू हो जाती है, स्पेशली नॉर्थ वेस्ट इंडिया में, और कई बार अर्ली हीट वेव्स मार्च महीने में ही शुरू हो जाती हैं, पर्टिकुलरली राजस्थान, गुजरात और एरियाज में. But April onwards, and the peak heat wave season is month of May and June, where we have extending from the northwest India to the southeastwards to the eastern India, coastal regions especially, and the central India, where we have 4 to 5 heat wave occurrences taking place. And there is a year-to-year variations depending on the atmospheric circulations. So these are the examples of 2022 and 2023. In 2022, we had heat wave conditions over northwest India. By and large, the southern peninsula had been devoid of heat waves both years. But the last year, the eastern parts of the India, Bihar, eastern UP, Odisha, those were affected, and West Bengal were affected by heat waves. Next. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, if we look at the climate change, which is now underlying factor for almost all ills related to the weather and climate, this is happening because of the anthropogenic reasons, emissions of the carbon dioxide, and of course, fossil fuel burning, and the changes in our land use, deforestation, and the changes in the oceans taking place because of. So these are the changes which are contributing to the climate change. And if we see next, please. Now this is the 19th March. CO2 recorded at the St. Mount Observatory in Hawaii. We have crossed 424 ppm. See, typically this remains between 200 to 300, but in 2021 we crossed 400, and now we are touching 424. This directly leads to the global warming. This is what emissions are there, and that's what is happening. That uninterrupted increase of the CO2 concentration is leading to the rise in temperature, which goes unabated unless we control our emissions. Next. So this is what the temperatures rise is taking place. Next. Now this has resulted, that was a global picture. Now within the country also, if you see this bar of temperatures, which shows interannual variability earlier, but from 1950 onwards, there has been a continuous increase in the temperature. On the right hand side, you see the bars which are going upwards, and this has led directly to the increase in the heat wave frequency. And if you see the map of the India, you find most of the areas have witnessed the increase in the heat waves. So this is an ongoing trend which is likely to be unabated in the times to come, and we have to be prepared for it. Next. This is again the same depiction of increase of heat waves and the severe heat waves. There are interannual variabilities, but the overall trend is increasing. Next. This is again, you can see up to 70s. As compared to that, the area from in the recent decade has shown increase. And next. Now the states, you see earlier, just northwestern India primarily was, and there's some parts of the central India, 9 states were affected by the heat waves, but now it has increased to 23. Number of heat wave days have increased, the intensity has increased, and the duration of heat waves increased. So in all, because of the climate change, global warming, rising temperatures, the heat, it is directly impacting the heat wave in its duration. And also they have started appearing in the month of March, which affects agriculture, and also extends in if the monsoon is delayed up to the first week of July. Next. Now this is what happens. We talked about urban heat island. So within the city, because of the urban heat island, the temperature variations can be there 3 to 4 degrees centigrade, and in extreme cases up to 7 to 8 degrees centigrade have been observed from the peri-urban areas to the densely constructed buildings areas and the zones. Next. So these are the record temperature and heat waves in 2020. So these records are becoming every year. So and now they are becoming historical data, but they are important to know that yes, the areas which used to be up 30, 35 now crossing 40 degrees centigrade, and where used to be 40 are touching 45. So we have to be prepared. And many of the European cities even this summer had more than 40 degrees centigrade temperatures. Next. 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 Now this is what the projection is there, that under best scenario, temperature will rise to 1.5, and as I mentioned, we are already touching 1.4. But if we don't control our emissions, temperature rise of 3 degrees centigrade is more likely, and that may become very critical to with the base temperature already at 45, temperature jumping to 48, and then urban heat islands increasing it further to 3 degrees centigrade. So maybe in the coming decades, it will be the 50 degrees centigrade will become a normal. And for us, the coping mechanism has to be there to face such high temperatures. Next. Now it impacts, you see, so far in this seminar and otherwise also, since the mortality, death, human death is most important, most of our discussions are concerned, focused on the human health. So many deaths have taken place, but it is impacting all livelihood, productivity, and all the sectors which are listed here. And so it is for our governance and our economy, the heat impact is going to be much beyond the human health. Yes, the health is important, but all other sectors also, they contribute a big way and will be adversely affected by the extreme heat. Next. Now, this is the case of, I had mentioned that in May to 2010, in May between 20th to 27th week, there was all-cause deaths. You see, normally there are 100 deaths reported by the Ahmedabad municipality death records, but in that week more than 800 deaths took place, and that was because of the rise in temperature up to 45, 47 degrees centigrade. So such events can lead to exceptionally high deaths if we are not prepared, and this has led to the development of heat action plan, in which I am happy to say that Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation have accepted it, and they are managing it so well that there has been significant decrease in the mortality. Next. Okay, this is the Ahmedabad heat action plan. So for any city to follow, I think this is a good example, and many cities have followed this heat action plan. It is also advocated by the NDMA. Next. Now, see, as I mentioned you, the meteorological data is good to give a first level of guidance about the heat wave and that warning. But that is not sufficient, because that is to be related with the health data. And as we have seen here, the Ahmedabad did try to work out based on the admission in the hospitals and the casualty all-cause data, and they have been able to fix the thresholds of which are different from what is India Met Department does universally for the most part of the country. So it brings out the importance that we have to develop the thresholds based on the local health data related to the meteorological data. And no two places can have a same type of thresholds. Now, this is an example of two cities. They are in different climatic zones. One is in India, another is in China, Shanghai. You find that here the threshold starts from 40, 41 degrees centigrade, whereas in Shanghai it starts 31, 32 degrees centigrade, and then it increases as the temperature rises. So what I want to bring out is that thresholds, to be realistic, have to be based on the good health data, which has to be developed for each city, for each area, at least at the district level if you are talking about the rural areas. And these thresholds have to be linked to the warnings by the IMD. Without that, yes, you do have a first level of warning provided because of the temperatures. You do take precautions necessary which are required, but it will be better if we, over a period of time, but we develop these thresholds. Next. This is what the NDMA advocates now, and I'm sure because I did attend a national workshop held in Vigyan last month, and most of the state disaster management authorities did participate, and they are aware of such guidelines to prepare a heat action plan, which is updated. So I appeal all state governments, representatives, and the NGOs and the civil society. This is available on their NDMA website, so you can have a positive part. Now, the key point which comes out from my interactions and experience is that the heat action plan or any plan essentially is a governance issue. You may have a good plan, but if unless it is accepted by the top management and implemented by the various agencies involved, it will never get implemented, is never successful. So wherever this has been, the heat action plan has been monitored by the head of the institutions, maybe the municipal commissioner or the secretary or the divisional commissioner, they have been successful. Otherwise, rest of the places it has been a paper exercise lying in the cupboards and nothing is being done on the ground. So, and then the second most important part is the early warning systems, which is the topic of my presentation. They have to be, linked to the state or the city action plan, and thereafter the capacity building and public awareness are two other components. Capacity building of the medical fraternity also, and also of the community as brought out, that is so important for outreach and taking the local level actions to safeguard against the heat waves. Next, please. Now, so as far as forecast and warning process is concerned, I am happy to say that over a period of time, India Met Department has been able to structure a very good forecasting process because of the developments taking place in our observing systems and the forecasting system. So they do provide in the month of February seasonal forecast. Then each month, on the last week, they provide the monthly forecast, followed by extended range forecast, which are weekly forecast, then short range forecast, 1 or 2, 3 days, and warnings. And these are being communicated to almost all key stakeholders at the top level. Downward communication to the district or the panchayat, yes, it has to be, it cannot be done by the India Met Department. And so this is the responsibility of the respective state governments. Next.
Thank you.
Okay,
Professor
so
Aditya, we request you to please conclude.
Yeah, I'll conclude. So we have a very good IMD monitoring system with the weather stations in real time. And next, please, let me go through. So we did provide a seasonal forecast. March is going to be normal, but April and May will have above normal temperature. So be prepared. And if you see this, your map and your state lies where it is red, then be adequately prepared and you will get, next slide, please. So the monthly forecasts are here. Next, go. Please go. So they are going to be, and we are providing extended range forecast. There are short and medium range forecast for each city. There are 370 cities. You can get these temperature forecasts and warnings. Next. This is what is available, maximum temperature, minimum temperature, weather for all the cities. Okay, next. Heat wave forecast precisely on next 3 days. Next. Now, let me please give me another 2 minutes. What we are now looking for is impact-based forecasting, which will be on GIS platform. And this will have incorporation of all meteorological factors and as far as possible, the health factors going down to the ward level or the panchayat level to provide the impact which is going to take place because of the high temperatures. And it will have a graded warning, cautionary warning, and part based on the color code. Next, please. So this is what we are working on it. IMED is working, and these color code warnings are already made available. Next. We also have incorporated the IMED note, which is GIS-based heat wave products, which is overlaid with the railways and next, please. Now what we have to work on the sector specific. As I told you, it is not only the health, but agriculture, forest fire, water resources, everything is dependent on the heat wave. It does impact, so we have to work on the threshold for giving warning to these. Next. So the challenges are sectoral thresholds for different to be worked out. We have to start now. Urban heat island is going there, and another challenge which probably we the mainland may not know is the marine heat waves, which are, since our 3/4 of globe is covered by the oceans, those heat waves are going to change many of atmospheric circulations and impact even the land areas. So thank you. We have to be prepared, and these are some urban heat islands shows part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ajit Tyagi Sahib. Really useful to share the data and projection at global and national level. This is really important to be conscious about our heat wave risk management planning. Now, with more time, I would like to request Mr. Himanshu Shekhar, who is Senior Editor, Political and Current Affair at NDTV. Very much needed aspect that he is going to share from the field. We have talked about government aspect and role as well as on CSOs, and now here is media. Thank you so much. Himanshu ji, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is a very important subject. In fact, just a few days ago, the WMO report on the global climate has categorically said that 2023 was the hottest year ever. And I remember last year when we were reporting on the monsoon for 3-4 months, we kept across a set of data which was showing, of course, the alarming speed with which the impact of climate change is now becoming visible on the global.
You are muted. Please unmute yourself, Himanshu ji.
Yeah, I think, is it
now
all right?
Yes. Now, yes.
Yeah. So while reporting on the ground last year during the entire monsoon season and also the summer season, I remember the issue of alarming change in the weather pattern was the primary subject that we reported extensively. And now the WMO report on global climate has very categorically said that this was a challenge that not only India was suffering from, but this is the challenge that the global community has to face now, because 2023 has now been officially recorded as the hottest year ever since the data was recorded by WMO. And now that essentially means, and the projections that Ajit sir was showing just now, clearly shows that the kind of heat action plans that we have to update them, keeping in fact the new projections that are coming, and also ensure that we have very viable monitoring mechanism for monitoring how these heat action plans are now being implemented on the ground by the state agencies, especially. Now, because the impact is not only on human health or animal health, but the impact is also now becoming more and more pronounced on the agriculture. For instance, I remember I did a ground report, and the official government of India's assessment is that the average temperature that was recorded between 1990 and 2010, if that average mean temperature continues, that trend continues over the next 17 years till 2040, then the wheat yield, that means the production of wheat, could decline by up to 5%. Now, this is the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Indian Agricultural Research Institute Director, Dr. A.K. Singh's own assessment. And this is a report that was prepared under his leadership. I did that interview with him. And so there are lots of studies that are now being taken up, that how the heat wave actually impacts not only human health or animal health, but it also has a very, very long-term impact on the on agricultural production at a time when our population is rising alarmingly. Now, the second point that I wanted to make was on the disappearing water bodies in urban landscape. Now, this is one report, one of the first census report on the water bodies in urban areas, and it clearly showed that the impact of changes on the ground on water management. There are lots of questions in terms of how these are being implemented. Just a few facts I want to share. India's first census of water bodies has revealed that 3,94,500 water bodies are unfit for any kind of use in the country today, largely on account of drying up, construction, siltation, salinity, etc. 38,496 water bodies are reported to have been encroached. And I remember when I went to Ghaziabad to do a ground report on this, I found that large number of water bodies across the Ghaziabad district, they have been encroached. The buildings have come up, some projects have been launched. So there's a very blatant encroachment of the water bodies. So on the one side, the demand for water is expected to rise with alarming change in the heat wave patterns, and also the impact that is becoming more and more visible on agriculture, for instance. And here I wish to just cite one instance of a ground report that I had done in Modinagar area, where a group of farmers who had grown wheat last year, and there was an unseasonal hailstorm in February that had a very bad impact on many of the wheat crops in this area. And then that was followed by a heat wave in April, and that had a bad impact on many of the wheat crops there. And it led to a loss of production of around 50% of the wheat that was reported across many parts of the Modinagar area. And I can see when I went to interview them ahead of the monsoon, the farmers were very jittery in terms of growing paddy, and they said that considering the alarming changes that are happening in the weather, it's better for us to go for crops like sugarcane, which are far more strong. So while we prepare for the forthcoming heat wave season, that is, of course, going to start next month, I think we need to also put in place new policy measures, try and update the heat wave action plan that we have, and also ensure that we have a national outreach plan to sensitize the farmers in terms of how they can actually adapt to these changes, the alarming changes that are happening in the weather, so that they are far more adept at meeting these challenges. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Himansuji. Really very useful and practical and from the ground. So really need to consider this into our planning wherever we are at whatever our level. We would like to open the floor for questions, if any, for Himansuji and for Ajitji.
Can I come in, Vishal?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I think both the deliberation has been excellent. I have a question for Tyagi sir. Sir, in your experience of last 50 years of predictions and early warning, can you, because we are on the, so to say, advising the government on the implementation and some kind of also work on the ground, can you help us to understand that any particular, that one I found that the good heat wave action plan for the municipal corporation, but where early warning system was effectively utilized or a community has been mobilized around that. Any good example from any urban or rural area? Not sure, sir. Is there?
Professor Tyagi, maybe.
Okay, sorry. Am I audible now?
Sir, sir.
Yes.
So, you see, the essential part is one is that the skills and the confidence in the forecasting over a period of time has increased. So this has given trust and confidence to the users to use it, particularly the administrators. So this is the beginning of, otherwise people don't rely on the forecast and no follow-up action takes place. Now, then second is the willingness of the administrator, the governance part, that whether they are able to use this information or the warnings. Because as I've shown you that there is a standard SOP. It's not that somebody is doing favor to the Bihar or neglecting Odisha or Jharkhand. The warnings go to the best of the whatever the skills of IMD are, that they do provide forecast, warnings, guidance to all the administrators. Now it is essentially the administrators, how do they incorporate it in their action plans, or more than action plan, how that gets implemented on the ground. So this is where, like Odisha is in a very good example. Gujarat is another good example, and many states now in this, as far as cyclone preparedness is concerned, linked to the warnings, they are doing a very good job, and from thousands to now the deaths toll have come to into 1 or 2 digit number. So similarly in the case of heat waves also, the forecasts are good enough to save lives, which are so precious, and for that lot many things. And you see, in the case of a cyclone, it is a focused activity. In the case of heat wave, it is very diffused, going up to the villages, to the urban centers. So accordingly, we have to activate, mobilize, make public awareness, and various interdepartmental coordination is must. So if you see Odisha heat action plan, there are 15 departments, and clear-cut, I think, instructions are given there. What should be done: the education department, health, water, public works department, the transportation, that buses should have water dispenser there in their buses, that shares there. So all these things are there in the plan, and all they do affect. Similarly, the Ahmedabad municipal corporation has done an excellent job. Rajkot has done, where we have the study was done from up to a ward level vulnerability, and those wards where brought out the slums, poor people are stay there and they don't have adequate water and electricity supply. How do they be provided? So there are now enough templates available to say that we don't have some new research is to be done. I don't agree to that. Heat action plans by NDMA last 5 to 10 days. The revision is taking place in those guidelines. Those guidelines are as per the mandate. The states have to implement. I'm not sure what is happening there, but there is of course a gap, and for some reasons, but I'm sure the civil society can take a lead, and whatever they can complement, it will be a great service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Himanshuji, there is one question for you on nature-based solution like wetland restoration in. Okay, Kshitij Gupta, can you ask directly? Yeah. I have some.
Yeah, sure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Himanshuji, you were talking about, thank you for your wonderful insights, sir. You were talking about the census of water bodies. So regarding that, I was thinking, we've always been told that wetland restoration in urban and peri-urban areas has been a potent method of flood control. Can it also be somehow used for mitigating the impact of urban heat island effect?
Well, I think this is a subject that has been discussed at different forums. But the big question is that in simple terms, if I put it, what we actually need to do essentially is that on the one side, as these alarming changes in global weather pattern becomes the new normal, and the average increase in temperature, and this has been a rising trend in last couple of decades. We have seen gradually, step by step, the temperatures have been rising. I think we have to correspondingly also take and initiate steps to ensure that the availability of water across the landscape, not only in urban areas but even in rural areas, is also increased. The reason why I had mentioned about the census of water bodies is that this is the first census of water bodies. That essentially means that this report, I think, was released last year, but before 2023, no census of water bodies in India was ever taken. And if you don't do a census of the water bodies, then you don't even know what is the state of health of these water bodies. And of course, the fact that 3,94,500 water bodies were found to be unfit for any kind of use in the country, that is very, very alarming. And remember, these are those water bodies that have been accounted for, that officials have studied and collected data. When I went to Ghaziabad, I did come across large number of water bodies which are in a very poor state of health, and even some of them that have been restored by the authorities, even they have been found to be unfit for use. People are saying that it has been of no use because the manner in which the regeneration work has been done in water ponds in different parts of Ghaziabad are not enough, and this of course has not helped assuage the kind of water problem we face in summer season. So I think all kinds of water bodies, I think we need to do more and more studies in terms of understanding the state of health of these water bodies, so that we can take more, I would say, concerted effort on the ground for restoration of all these wetlands, water bodies, and other structures that are needed actually to help not only people but also animals. I remember when there was a lot of parliament data on the debilitating impact of heat wave on animals, that we need to study this subject more, because we do know that for fodder, many of these cattle and animals have to venture out in search of food and water. And these are at times one of the worst victims of the heat wave. I think we need to take steps at different levels. And of course, the suggestion that you have made also needs to be seen in this context.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
I think I can share some experiences. What I have seen in my hometown, Rourkela in Odisha, there are some low-lying areas in a particular region, and I have found that whenever I pass through that area, there is a drain, urban drain, and by the sides there are farmlands, agricultural lands, which are more or less regularly irrigated, I suppose. So I feel quite a different atmosphere there, and the temperature is quite down there. It feels quite comfortable, cool and comfortable, despite the normal heat elsewhere. So I think there is a lot of scope in exploring those potentials. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikasji. Very useful. Now, looking at time, would like to thanks to all the participants, and also especially Dr. Ajit Tyagi Sahib and Himanshu Sahib for sharing very important insights and directly connect with our work. I would like to share few points that have been discuss with Mihir Bhai, and so there are several points came out very clearly that compared to past, now we have number of action plans. For example, India has now more than 37 heat action plan, which were not earlier. And of course, we are also reviewing those things and how it can be strengthened, how it can be reviewed, how it can be, promote and implemented strongly with participation of required population. On the other side, it is needless to say that the risk of heat wave is increasing, looking at projection, prediction, and frequency and intensity. Our efforts for risk management and preparedness to heat wave is not as the heat wave risk is increasing. So this is very important point. Another point is also coming out that co-location of hazard is also important to see. Like, for example, in 2021, in the month of May, we have witnessed Cyclone Taute. On the other side, the same year, we witness flood as well as heat wave. So these also needs to be taken care in our planning. So one point in the presentation came out that conversion of our actions with heat wave risk management is very important. So 4 points are coming out very clearly. Of course, FEAR India and AIDMI going together and addressing these things continuously. And we also welcome panelists and organization who join as a speaker and as a participant here, wherever possible conversions possible in our action in 2024. Information and methods for heatwave planning related awareness is required. There are a good number of tools exist, planning are there, but it's required how to integrate in our ongoing basis work. Another one is regarding finance, that now during the heat wave allocation fund exist. Of course, not across, and it needs stronger decision-making thing allocation, but still now better than the past, it exists. Now anticipatory fund needs to be addressed. So these are the 2 points. Third one is related to coordination. The good structure for heat wave risk management in government as well as CSO's participation has been increased in addressing heat wave on the ground. Now, how government and CSO for faster and early action is required in our upcoming action. Fourth is already discussed, especially in the first session by Rajiv Bhai as well as Dr. Mol, that who are the vulnerable population. Now, are our heat wave actions addressing those vulnerable population, particularly, and also about their engagement in this work, in planning exercise and that. So scientific predictions for heat wave are there. And needless to say that it is going to increase with high intensity and frequency. Vulnerable groups needs to be targeted, and our action needs to be, specific to those groups. And those are people with comorbidity, agriculture labor, casual labor, migrant laborers, outdoor worker, particularly in economy like India, where more than 40% GDP by informal sector. So small and informal businesses are really needs to be covered, needs to be compensated, needs to be, health system needs to be covered them more effectively, and children and pregnant women. So these are the vulnerable population. So these are 4 elements that we think that need to going to be addressed in our action together. And we would like to, request panelists and participants, whoever have interest in joint efforts, feel free to communicate. And with this, I would like to thank to all the panelists, speakers, and participants from Sphere India and AIDMI side. Thank you so much for this
Vishalji,
very
one
interesting work.
last suggestion.
Please.
Yeah, I think it is high time to focus on the best practices. and we should deliberate upon the best practices already available in the country in the different areas. Okay, and because that would be more useful than going for differential planning. Okay.
Yes, very true. Especially while you are speaking this, I recall immediately from the government side, as Dr. Tyagi mentioned about Ahmedabad heat action plan, which replicate and the tools and method has been replicated to many cities, not only India, also in South Asian cities. And the same way, departmental thing, which happening in Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Odisha states, so very effectively they are integrating into departmental planning level. Of course, it's required more further strengthen efforts. But yes, I totally agree with what you say.
Thank
the
you.
successful plan needs to be considered.
Thank you.
Yes.
And let me tell you that I am from Odisha. I'm in Odisha. Odisha does have one heat wave action plan. Okay, and there are several good points also, but practically, I think the vulnerability is increasing, and the current action plan is not able to address the increasing vulnerability. Okay.
Yes,
So
our risk
Thank
is increasing far
Yeah,
more
right.
than what
We
our
need to do
efforts for
more.
risk reduction.
We need to
Agree.
do more. Yeah.
Yes.
And sir, just one point that I wish to just raise here is with regard to the impact of heat wave on agriculture, for instance. Now, we know that the impact of climate change is becoming more and more pronounced on agriculture. And the projections that I shared just now, these are projections of agricultural scientists who are studying this subject in Indian Council of Agricultural Research and Indian Agricultural Research Institute. And they have very clearly said that the temperature pattern recorded between 1990 to 2010, if it continues till 2040, then the production of wheat could reduce by up to 5%. Now, this is not only in case of wheat, but there are other projections that have been shared by Agriculture Minister in Parliament on other crops as well. So I think when we think about heat wave preparedness, we need to think about, apart from human health and animal health, we need to think about its larger impact on the agricultural economy at the larger level, because we've already become the largest country in the world in terms of population. So we can't afford to, come across a situation where the production of important food crops declines. That is the projection as of now. So we need to do more climate adaptation planning in terms of how we can have a national outreach plan for farmers, for instance, to sensitize them as to how this can have an impact and how they can better adapt to these climate change impact that is now becoming more and more visible. Because I can tell you, sir, from my ground reports, that large number of farmers in Modinagar area, for instance, where I did series of case studies, it clearly shows that many farmers who used to grow wheat during the Rabi season decided not to grow paddy during the Kharif season because of the vagaries of nature that they came across and the loss of production, because farmers have to invest a lot. Many of them, they take loan to buy seeds, fertilizers, etc. And when the production declines, they face huge economic loss. And we have come across farmer protests in different parts of the country. Even in the MSP that is fixed, their complaint is they don't receive it. So I think there are larger ramifications of the heat wave. And I think we need to have a larger holistic national strategy and involve millions and millions of farmers who are also suffering from the heat wave impact. Thank you,
totally agree. Adaptation and mitigation, both. There is no option, and we have to increase our speed far more than what at the current space. Agree. Thank you so much. Sorry, take a bit more time than our schedule. Nupurji, any last words from your side?
So, Sharji, I think it has been a very insightful discussion, and a lot of work, a lot of organizations in our network are doing on the subject. So, from these discussions and also building upon the work that is already being done, how we can take this forward is something that we, as our collaboration or coalition, is what we are looking forward to, and that's something we'll be working towards. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Many, many thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you everyone for joining us for these insightful discussions.
Thank you, Rajesh sir and Vishal sir for moderating this session, exciting session.
Thank you. Thank you all of you.
ADMI
Thank you,
for
everyone.
moderating
Thank
this
you.
session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.